Okay, great. So I have the pleasure to have, as I said, Laura Mentini from APRE. She will do the introduction of the project, and then we will go on with the presentation from Dr. Giglia. Of course, if meanwhile you will have any question, you can write in the chat and we can direct the question to Dr. Giglia. But at the end, I think you saw also the agenda. We will have a 20 minutes of time to make the question and an open discussion. As I said, we are very sure that all the information will be very beneficial to all the participants, but of course we want to hear also your perspective on the topic. Laura, if you can continue please with the presentation of yourself, of course, and of CATALISI.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Very pleased to be here. Happy to see many participants. Thanks for your participation. Thanks again to Dr. Giglia for your presence as well. I will try to share my screen. Let me know if you see the slides. Okay, can you see? Can you just confirm you can see the
We
slides?
can't see yet the presentation mode.
Now?
Not yet.
This is always happening. Can you see the screen?
We can, yeah, we can see the screen, but not yet the presentation mode.
It's weird. I'm sharing, so I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe I can just do it without it. Can you see the full slides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. So good morning again. Thanks for being here. Sorry for this technical issue. Zoom is never supporting us on this. I don't know why. So my name is Laura Mentini. I work as a project manager in APRE, the Agency for the Promotion of European Research. We are a non-profit research organization based in Rome and composed of more than 160 members from the most important research and innovation field in Italy. And we're also coordinating this project, CATALISI, which I will briefly talk to you about today to give you a bit of a context of the project that we're in and also the context of this webinar that is organized today, as Suira was also anticipating before. So what is CATALISI? What is the project about? So the acronym stands for the catalyzation of institutional transformation of higher education institutions through the adoption of acceleration services. The main goal of this project is therefore to help and support universities, higher education institutions around Europe to successfully implement tailored and specific strategy and an individual pathway for their institutional transformation in the domains of research and innovation and through the adoption of acceleration services. So we're not transforming universities in general, but looking specifically at the governance of universities, so how they interact also with society to transform the most important issues of societal concern. What is behind the project? It is funded by under the Horizon Europe Framework Program. And universities in this context are considered as drivers of change in alignment with the European research area and also the objective of the higher education transformation European agenda. In this sense, the European Commission is supporting and pushing projects by taking actions and developing large-scale strategies, tools, and services that can help universities in drawing some successful roadmaps for institutional changes. And as I was mentioning, to develop a new governance framework that responds to societal issues and societal missions. We are 11 partners in the project, coming from 8 different European countries. 3 of them are widening countries, Greece, Lithuania, and Poland. And the project is also built upon 2 main blocks. We have 4 facilitators on one hand, who are those who are providing acceleration services, also transferring knowledge to universities and helping them co-design and implement activities for their institutional transformation. On the other hand, we have 7 higher education institutions who are implementing, testing these changes in their specific context and research organizations, and are also committed by the end of the project to implement some reforms and changes in their governance structures. Here you can see the topics of transformation, so the specific domains of transformation that each university is required to focus upon. We have 3 main domains of interventions. Each of them is composed of other intervention areas. So we have transformations in the topic of research careers and talent support. Within this, we have aspects such as the addressment of lifelong learning, gender equality and inclusiveness, the reform of research assessment, for instance. A second domain of transformation is what relates to how research is being done. So research modus operandi, therefore the mainstreaming of open science practices, the engagement of public to solve societal issues. And finally, an aspect which relates to financial sustainability in the long run for universities, therefore connecting, developing networks and alliances for financial sustainability. As I was mentioning, we are adopting 7 acceleration services. These are designed to facilitate and catalyze the process of transformation of universities within the field of research and innovation, and they are characterized by an innovative feature. There are 7 acceleration services in our project, and today we're in this context of the one of reinforcing human capital, capacity building, and outreach. Therefore, through this series of webinars, we're intending to reinforcing the capacities, the skills of universities to drive institutional transformations in their context. To tell you a bit more about this acceleration services, the goal is to provide, as I was saying, the capacities, the skill sets, and also to connect universities with other societal actors to share best practices, knowledge, and expertise. We have 3 main activities in this acceleration services within the Learning Hub, which is a series of webinars, as Srida was mentioning, organized within the project. The aim is to create and develop training paths that provide universities with the knowledge and tools required within the dynamic that they operate. And we organized until now 7 webinars. This is the 8th one. You can find all of the webinars recorded in our website in the Learning Hub section. So we encourage you also to go back and look at all the materials that are provided in our website. And finally, we also created a community of practice, which is composed of a group of people that belong to different sectors from the quadruple elect stakeholder sector, who share common interests and also expertise and experiences in institutional transformation of universities. So you're more than welcome also to join this community and also to stay in touch with us through this network of people continuing to drive institutional transformations in the future. And I thank you. I'm sorry again for the technical issue, and I hope you enjoy the webinar of today, and I'm here for any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Laura, for your presentation and for presenting CATALISI. And thanks, Sandra, for sharing the link. You have in the chat also the link that brings you directly to the webinars that are registered, the past ones. And I encourage everyone to participate in the next webinars. Also, you are more than welcome to get in touch with the CATALISI team, and also why not to be part of the community of practice of the project. Now we can start the presentation with Dr. Giglia. I just mentioned that Dr. Giglia is the head of the Open Science Unit at the University of Turin. So Dr. Giglia, I would like maybe for you to better present yourself, and then we can go on with your presentation. Thanks a lot, first of all, for accepting our invitation for today.
No, it's me. Thanking you for inviting me, because, you know, I'm always happy to talk about open science, even though today the focus is not on open science itself, but CoARA is really a crucial initiative also to enable. And the main message of this talk would be that it's, you know, a 2 direction. So either open science for evaluation and evaluation for open science. So I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. And as I want to show you a very short video, it's 1.5 minutes, so don't worry. but it's just to introduce one of the reasons why we need CoARA. Okay, so please, if Suhida, you can show the video. Thank you.
Yes, I will show the video right now. Just if you can please confirm me that.
Hey, Christopher. Yeah, boss, what's up? What do you think about making some of our articles open access? That's a good idea. Make the articles free to the public so that anybody can appreciate the latest scientific advancements. I like it. Of course, the author would have to pay some kind of publishing fee. Yeah, okay, that's reasonable. What, like a couple $100? Yeah, I was thinking maybe $11,000. What? Yeah, $11,000, and we put your article on our website for anybody to read. Why so much? Oh, you know, all the costs. What costs? Reviewing the article? Yeah, we don't pay reviewers. We guilt them into it because it's good for science. Okay, what about formatting? Your 12-year-old niece does that for us. Well, we gotta publish it. That costs money. It's a PDF on a website. Kaylee does it in like 2 seconds. Kaylee? Your niece. Oh, yeah. Besides, who's going to be able to afford this? Oh, people will pay. Why? Because they have to. What do you mean? Researchers have to publish in order to keep their jobs or get promoted, and we're one of the most prestigious journals around. People will pay. So it's extortion. Here at Nature, we're doing crime. Oh, Christopher, don't be so dramatic. So let me get this straight. You want to charge researchers $11,000 to publish an open access article, thereby ensuring that only researchers with the most money get to publish an article, which defeats the purpose of having open access articles in the first place. Yeah, that's right. And this is guaranteed to be profitable because researchers' livelihoods are dependent on a predatory system that values publishing in high-impact journals. Hey, you got it. This, of course, is insane. It's academics, baby.
I switched from due dates to...
Yeah. I hope you appreciated the video, because it's, of course, the video, it's not about open access also, because this kind of open access is not open access, I can tell you for sure. This is the commercial exploitation of the idea of open access made by great commercial publishers like Springer Nature or Elsevier, because actually this video was published the day in which Nature, which is one of the most prestigious journal in the world, announced that to publish one single article open access, you have to pay $11,000. And by the way, now this amount of money increased to $12,290, okay? So this is not open access, but the meaning of this video, it's about prestige, okay? So our current criteria system are based essentially on prestige, which means that we can pay, we have to pay highest subscription rates for high impact factor journals. And then they translated also to open access. So if we want to publish open access in prestigious journal, we have to pay higher APCs. So that's not the way it should be. So let's start with the real presentation of today. I hope you can see my slide in a moment in presentation mode. Is it in presentation mode? Can you confirm?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so the slides are already available on Zenodo, which is an open access repository for you. They have a Creative Commons by, so feel free to reuse them, provided that you cite me as the author. And the same is true for the background photos, because all the photos are mine, so feel free to reuse. And here you also have my contacts. You can follow me on Blue Sky, no longer on Twitter for clear reasons. But anyway, so this is the normal reaction when I show the rainbow of an open workflow, meaning that the tools are there, and the normal reaction of people attending a seminar on open science, yes, everything is wonderful. It would be wonderful, but we are still evaluated by impact factor. So that's the normal reaction, because unfortunately impact factors is still, let's say, the dominating way by which researchers are evaluated all around the world. And time is up. So that's the focus of our webinar today, because we have CoARA, we have the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment. So let's say that the initiative is ongoing. It was launched in 2022, so more than 2 years ago. And mid-March, we had 832 signatories to the agreement. That's huge. I think it's an impressive number. And one of the main commitments, and we are going to go through the commitments of CoARA, is that we no longer commit to use impact factor, or more widely, the ranking criteria to assess research. So what are we going to see? Why we need CoARA? Is CoARA something coming out of the blue or not? And of course, the answer is no. And how CoARA try to respond to the crisis of the current scholarly communication system, and then some tools and some way forward. As the webinar is being recorded, I would kindly ask you to keep your questions for later, so after the presentation, not to interrupt the presentation, or in order not to, to spoil the recording for other listeners later. How are we going to proceed? Sorry, but we will go a bit back and forth among official documents from the European Union, some numbers, some articles, and then, of course, the text of the CoARA agreement, to see how CoARA responds to a specific need of the scientific community. And to start, some, let's say, starting ideas or key messages. Research assessment criteria deeply influence researchers' behavior, at the point that we will see that we can talk about adaptive behaviors. And they maintain a dysfunctional system, which is the system we just show. I just show you in the video. It's the system of commercial journals by subscription. So basically, we publish behind a paywall. So either you pay the subscription, or you don't have access to prestigious journal, or you pay an insane amount of money to publish open access in these, let's say, prestigious journals, with a waste of public money, because we are talking public money, right? We are publicly funded research performing organizations. It has been calculated $10 billion per year in subscriptions. So we use public money to buy back a research you gave for free, because you are not paid as authors, you are not paid as reviewers, as we saw in the video, to lock a content behind paywall. So it's really insane. And this system is maintained only because of the current research assessment criteria, in which we use the same tool, which is the journal, which is used to disseminate knowledge, and we use the same tool to evaluate researchers. So that's the, let's say, the father of all the evil, okay? So using the same tool both to disseminate research and to evaluate researchers. Because this brought to some, let's say, unintended consequences, to be polite, but I would say adverse effect, not only side effects. So for ages, people or better researchers have been advocating for a change. And that's why CoARA is built upon a real need. So it's a long-awaited reform, and it's based on official European Union documents, either recommendation from the European Commission or conclusions of the Council of the European Union. But CoARA in itself, it's a bottom-up, community-based, flexible, and I would stress flexible and progressive initiative. And as you can see, CoARA's mission is to enable a systemic reform. That's what we need, a systemic reform, and not just spot initiative as the one that were in place before and that we will see in a moment in the presentation. So CoARA is based on a common set of principles and commitments. Through collaborative action, exchange of knowledge, and mutual learning exercises, CoARA aims to support all members in adopting and refining more inclusive and effective assessment practices. So that's the mission of CoARA. So where do we start from? Why we need CoARA? Here you see the International Science Council speaking, and look at the date. So that's another thing I always forget to say. In all the slides, you have the sources. You have the sources, so you have the direct link to the source, because I will give you some data, and so you have the sources. Nowadays, we use metrics to evaluate researchers. These metrics, in turn, affect the behavior of researchers, such as their choice of journal. If you think of it, today, you are not free to publish wherever you want, because you have to publish in the highest impact factor journal. So you are not free, basically. And that contribute to the maintenance of high journal prices, which is precisely what we saw in the video, not only for subscriptions, but also for APC. So when you pay to publish in hybrid open access journals, and I say hybrid because full open access is completely different, but that's another webinar, okay? Promote intense competition rather than openness and sharing and collaboration, and fail to recognize research contributions such as datasets, software, code, blogs, wikis, and forums. So basically, nowadays, we are only focused on papers, okay, journal papers. And if you think of it, this is an heritage of the past, because when I did my PhD, it was 1991, and we still just had paper-based journals. So anything we could do at the time was publishing the synthesis of our research in a journal paper, okay? But now we have the web. So basically we could and we should give access to the entire workflow. So the data, the code we use to process, the protocols, the methodology, and whatever. But being focused only on journal, on high impact factor journals and publications, we are missing a huge part of our research. Second point, evaluation is the keystone, as it was recognized in this report, Future of Scholarly Publishing and Scholarly Communication. Here is Professor Jean-Claude Guédon speaking, who was the chair of this high-level expert group at European level. The conclusion is actually simple. The evaluation of research is the keystone. The ranking imperative affects all levels of research structure and tend to constrain change for nearly all actors. And that's basically the same idea that we find in this report about the European Open Science Cloud, EOSC. But this was the introduction by Baron Mons. And he said, researchers, funders, and publishers, bracket, I always thought that meant making things public and not keeping things behind a paywall. Anyway, they keep each other hostage in a deadly embrace by continuing to conduct, publish, fund, and judge science in the same way as in the past century. So far, no one seems to be able to break this deadlock. And as Elizabeth Gadd puts it, it was at the beginning of the pandemic. So at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a huge reflection among researchers because the purpose of publication should be to share knowledge for the benefit of mankind, okay? And Elizabeth was concluding, if we have created a generation of scholars who are just in it for the glory of papers in glamorous journals and not to do good research that changes the world a little bit, then we are really in trouble. And here, listen to a coalition of funders. So the funders, okay, the institutions paying for your research, they gather in 2020 in Coalition S, which is the coalition responsible for Plan S, which you might have heard of. So a coalition of funders, they were reflecting on current scholarly communication, and they said, our collective duty of care is for science system as a whole, and researchers must realize that they are doing a gross disservice to the institution of science if they continue to report their outcomes in publications that will be locked behind paywalls, because of course, in this way, they are withdrawing some findings to researchers not able to afford any subscription. And listen again to the funders. We also understand that researchers may be driven to do so by a misdirected reward system, which puts emphasis on the wrong indicators like journal impact factor. We therefore commit to fundamentally revise the incentive and reward system of science. And of course, here they quote the San Francisco Declaration, the DORA Declaration, as in 2020, CoARA was not yet there. And the last slide on why we need CoARA comes from researchers. This is a presentation given by Erzbeth Tots-Cifra, who is the Secretary General of the CoARA initiative. And she showed in Messina for the 20 years after the Messina Declaration, it was a huge celebration back in November last year. And she showed this sentence coming from a young, an early career researcher, a PhD candidate. If you could change just one aspect of the present day academia, what would it be? The reward system. So it's a specific, it's a real need from the community. And it's urgent. It's urgent because they see that these criteria brought unintended consequences. As you can see in this slide here, an unhealthy research culture, okay? So that's why we need a set of urgent and harmonized actions by all the actors. So not only the funders, also evaluation agencies, publishers, and researchers themselves, because we need synchronized actions if we want a truly systemic change. And then talking about CoARA, is CoARA coming out of the blue? And of course, the answer is not, because in 2017, so more than like 8 years ago, there was another high-level expert group at European level publishing this report, whose title is Evaluation of Research Careers, Fully Acknowledging the Open Science Practices. And in this matrix, and it's important to stress matrix and not metrics, you see that you have several aspects to be considered, to be evaluated. Just the first one is research output and not publication. And by output, we mean data, software, protocols, methodologies, whatever. Basically, every step of your research is a research output. And in the column, you see the weight. So it's different if you are an early career researcher or a full professor. And the aspects to be considered are research outputs, the research process, and it deals with research integrity, of course, because is your research process sound or not? But how can we evaluate if your research process was sound or not if we don't see what's in between your initial hypothesis and the final outcome in a form of a publication? We don't see the data, we don't see the methodology, we don't see anything in between. So how can we evaluate the soundness of your research process? And then leadership. So are you creating a school? Are you passing by a methodology to your students? Or is your laboratory a toxic environment in which you basically exploit your early career researchers? And again, you see the different ways according to your, let's say, status. So if you are an early career researcher or if you are a full professor. And then you have research impact. And by research impact, we mean impact, real impact in real life and not the impact factor. Then teaching and supervision, and then a professional experience. And in the Netherlands, with this, let's say, initiative, which is called Room for Everyone's Talent, which dates back to 2020. So in some countries, they are already ahead of us on this path of changing the criteria for research assessment. As you can see, they evaluate professional performance, research, education, leadership, team working, and real impact in real life. And of course, the quality of your research, and they reward open science practices. In Finland, you see, if you want to go for a fairer assessment, you need to make it meaningful, make it possible, and make it rewarding. And then you have some, let's say, discipline-based reflection and recognition of the need of new values. For instance, if you look at the manifesto of EU metrics, you see that the second value is openness. Okay, so you have to reward open science practices. And then we have the two classical initiatives, the Leiden Manifesto for Research Metrics, so 10 principles to guide research for a meaningful research assessment. And we have already mentioned it, the DORA Declaration. And the DORA Declaration, you know, it's not just a declaration, it's a powerful website in which you can find case studies, you can find reports, you can find tools like this one, which are the building blocks for impact. Look how beautiful it is compared to the impact factor, which is just a number, okay? You have these building blocks, you know, considering open science, but considering also science for policy, considering leadership, considering teaching, considering also industry collaboration and commercialization, real world societal impact. And then you can combine these building blocks in a different way in order to have a new evaluation. In the Netherlands, they abandoned the impact factor in 2021. So the world is already changing even before CoARA. In Horizon Europe, you are invited not to even mention the impact factor in part A of your proposal when you have to point to the 5 achievements. And it's achievement, the wording is not publication, so achievement, and you are supposed not to mention the impact factor. The ERC abandoned the impact factor in 2021, and Spain is undergoing now a change in the evaluation system. So again, CoARA is not coming out of the blue, and even in the UK, you have this scope framework, which is quite interesting if you want, and that's why I highlighted it, because it's quite interesting if you want to start the CoARA, let's say, path, because CoARA is supposed to be built upon reflection, okay? So scope, it's a great framework because you have to start with what you value, which are your personal value, okay? Because if you just value the quantity of papers you publish in 1 year, that's what researcher value, okay? So if you value openness and if you measure openness, then that will be what researchers will be looking for. Then you have to have context consideration, different options for evaluation, and then you have to probe deeply. So in your evaluation, consider potential discrimination, gaming of the approach, unintended consequences, and weigh the costs and benefit. And in the end, evaluate your evaluation while assessing whether it achieves these goals, and it's really very important. So this scope framework can be a powerful tool for you to start your reflection once signing CoARA. What's the point in CoARA? It's that all the above mentioned initiatives, because they were there, okay? So CoARA is not coming out of the blue, but they were like spot initiatives, okay? The importance of CoARA is that a systemic change. So the vision of CoARA, it's a systemic change, and it was quick. It was really very quick as a process because it started at the end of 2021 with this scoping report, again, from the European Commission. So again, this is an official document. Then they started having meetings, collaborative writing in the first 6 months of 2022. And in July 2022, the final text of the agreement was ready. CoARA was launched in September 2022. And in December, we had the first steering board elected because now we had the second one on duty, but it was quick, as you can see. We have several components. One is the agreement. So we have a text of the agreement. We have some guiding principles included in the agreement. And then we have the 10 commitments. And of course, we are going to see all of them later. But the most important thing in CoARA is the action frame, okay? The time frame for the action planning. Because after signing the agreement, and I stress, it's an agreement. It's not a declaration. It's an agreement, so between you and the CoARA, let's say, coalition, and basically also the European Commission behind. Then you have 1 year to provide an action plan. And then you have 5 years to show the Commission the results. And then maybe to adjust if it's working or if it's not working, okay? So it's very important. It's an agreement. You have some commitment, and in 1 year, you have to deliver your action plan. Some numbers. Mid-March, sorry, we had 832 organizations. So it's remarkable. It's, again, it's not spot a spot initiative, just some few institutions in Europe, we have more than 800 organizations signing the agreement. And we have a lot of action plans. You have a specific community in the Zenodo repository. And for Italian listening people, also Amvur signed CoARA, and they published their action plan, which is quite, let's say, mild, if I can put it this way. But anyway, so we have action plans. They are available because, as I said before, CoARA, it's also about sharing initiatives, and it's also about mutual learning. So maybe you can keep suggestions. You can take suggestions, sorry, from one of the published action plans. And why we need CoARA? So as I told you at the beginning, let's go back and forth to official documents and let's say the reality. Let's read the scoping report. The research and innovation process is undergoing major evolutions. The volume of previous findings and data set is often staggering, and desired outputs are no longer restricted to scholarly publication. As we have multi, inter, and transdisciplinary approaches, we need collaboration instead of competition. And we need collaboration also to address societal challenges, okay? And then we have a huge issue about reliability and reproducibility of research outputs, and we are going to see it in a moment. And again, listen to the scoping report. These major evolutions, so no longer publication, interdisciplinarity, replicability, reproducibility, are not aligned with the metrics that often dominate assessment: the number of publication and citations, and the quantity of publication in journal with high impact factor. The race for publication, the so-called publish or perish culture, comes at the expense of quality, integrity, and trust in research. I would say spot on. And we are going to see in a moment. Because what about the current system? Remember, please, the wording. The so-called publish or perish culture comes at the expense of quality, integrity, and trust in research. 179% self-citation increase in Italy after our national research assessment was enacted. Citation cartels, and last year, the entire field of mathematics was taken out from Web of Science because they recognized that there was citation cartels, okay? We have the plague of paper mills, basically industry. You pay and they publish a paper. We have 70% of studies which are not reproducible in some disciplines. And as I told you, you have the source for all this data. We have this phenomenon called hyperproduction. And by hyperproduction, I mean that we have researchers, and many of them, publishing more than 60 papers per year, which means more than one paper a week. Are we serious? Is this science? And in Thailand, where they pay you if you publish in a high impact factor journal, we had a 9-fold increase in journal papers production. But this comes at the expense of quality, because in the past year, we saw an increase in retractions, and we have 43, which in the time became 66 in some disciplines, of retractions for fraud. And by fraud, I mean data fabrication, data falsification, data makeup, image duplication, any kind of wrongdoing you can think applied to science. And if you are thinking about, oh yes, of course, the predatory open access journals, you are wrong, because there is a direct correlation between the journal impact factor and the number of retraction, meaning that the highest the impact factor, the highest the number of retractions. So high impact factor is not a quality seal, and prestigious journals are not prestigious at all. And actually, retractions, which are tracked in this blog, scientific blog, which is called Retraction Watch, became a nightmare. I just took some of, in the past 3 months, fake data prompts retraction of Nature journal. Former Harvard cancer researcher plagiarized data federation watchdog. Springer Nature journal has retracted over 200 papers. Cancer specialist faked data in at least 10 papers at UCLA in California, while a medical journal retracts dozens of papers for manipulated peer review. And the rector of the University of Salamanca had to resign because of scientific misconduct. So if we were in a real room, I would ask you, raise your hand, please, if you see any predatory journal among this title. And of course, the answer is no. So when you are talking about retractions, we are not talking about predatory journals. We are talking about the most prestigious, and I would say the more expensive journals, okay? And then we have this new entry, which of course is ChatGPT. So my question is, where was the reviewer? Because if you read, first of all, before reading the sentences highlighted in yellow, look at the logo of the publisher, which again is not an open access predatory publisher, is Elsevier. And these papers, all these 3 papers, because these are 3 different papers, these are published in Elsevier journals. The first sentence is the introduction, and the first sentence is, certainly, here is a possible introduction for your topic. The second sentence is, unfortunately, I am unable to directly draw algorithms or visual representation due to the fact that I am an AI language model. However, I can outline a generalized algorithm and so on. And the last one is, in summary, I'm very sorry, but I don't have access to real-time information or patient-specific data as I am an AI language model. So my question is, nobody noticed? Not even the author, the editor of the journal, the reviewers, the prestigious blind reviewers? Nobody noticed? Because basically, nobody reads. We just publish for the publish or perish, and nobody cares what is actually in the publication, okay? Because nobody spot these sentences, but clearly these are papers written by ChatGPT, by artificial intelligence, and not by a real person, okay? And why is that? Because evaluation became an obsession. It's not me speaking, it's the Royal Society. They held, 10 years ago, a workshop at the Royal Society in London, and the title was The Future of Scholarly Scientific Communication. And there were senior researchers talking about early career researchers. And they said, not only we are failing to provide the right incentives, we are providing perverse ones. And they cite the Goodhart law, which is when a measure becomes a target, it ceased to be a good measure because people game the system at every level. And actually, Gaming the Metrics is the title of a book published by and edited by Mario Biagioli and Alexandra Lippmann back in 2019, collecting every kind of scientific misconduct and manipulation in academic research. And the book is about 300 pages. So it's not a booklet, you see. So, darling, we need to talk. And you know that when your partner says, darling, we need to talk, it's nothing good to be expected. These are some titles from 2019 to 2025, okay? We need to talk about systematic fraud. Bad apples or systematic problem. Is Italy struggling with maintaining high level of research integrity? Universities need to stop hiding from research integrity problem. Publish or perish culture blamed for reproducibility crisis. Our publish or perish culture is breaking the academy. The focus on impact of published research as creating new opportunities for misconduct and fraudsters. And there was a letter to Nature last month in February, and the title was, Is Research Misconduct Becoming Unstoppable? And as you can see, they blame the fixation on research metrics. So I think it's really time to do something, because if we reduce scholarly communication to produce a number of articles per year, and of course the article which has also to be reviewed, somehow having fake papers and fake reviews written by ChatGPT is a logical consequences. So it's simply the system that these perverse research assessment indicators deserve. So as you can see in this paper, it's no longer the case that people are gaming the system. The system has become a game. So maybe it's time to say game over. Or put in another way, Elisabeth Beek, she's a Dutch scientist and she's an expert in research integrity. We need to slow down, okay? We need to slow down because this race for publication really did harm to scientific integrity. So we need to slow down. And this is where open science might help, because science should be show me and not trust me. I want to see the data. I want to see the methodology. I want to see the software by which you process the data. I want to see the protocols. So I want to see everything in between your initial hypothesis and your final output. So you see that open science and research integrity are strictly interlinked. And in the paper we already cited, the focus also to beat the reproducibility crisis is to train researchers in open research practices. So going back to CoARA, because we were talking about the scoping report, which pointed to the current research assessment criteria as the cause for research misconduct, we have also the Council conclusion on research evaluation, June 2022. So it's an official document of the European Union. And they say, acknowledge that research assessment system should focus on quality and impact, and recalls that the current research assessment system are nowadays, to a great extent, too focused on the use of some quantitative journal and publication-based indicators and the evaluation of a narrow range of research outputs, and considers that such an approach may lead to negative biases in terms of research quality, reproducibility, and integrity. And again, I would say spot on. And I gave you all the evidence in the previous slide. Then the Council of the European Union stresses that research assessment should include other research outcomes and processes and promote early knowledge sharing and collaboration to accelerate the implementation of open science policies and practices. So as I told you at the beginning, it's bidirectional, okay? So evaluation for open science, but also open science for a better evaluation and for a better research. So let's go to the agreement, to the text of the agreement of CoARA, because we find the same logic and basically the same sentences, because also in the agreement we read that the dominance of narrow journal and publication-based metrics, which are often used inappropriately and research assessment, can be a hurdle to the recognition of diverse contribution and may negatively affect the quality and impact of research. For example, the dominance can promote quantity and speed, 60 papers per year, more than one a week, at the expense of quality and rigor, okay? Of course, the emergency of predatory journals, but they are not open access. They are predatory journals everywhere just because you have to publish. You need one more line in your CV, and encourage publishing in paywall journal because they are high impact factor journal. But remember what the funders were saying. We have a duty of care to research as a whole. So hiding behind paywalls the outputs of research funded by public money, it's not ethical, okay? But this system of paywalled subscription journal is in place just because of evaluation purposes, okay? Think about the community of physics. They have archived the preprint servers since 1991. And they use archive for their real research. They publish in subscription-based journal just for the sake of career, just for purpose for evaluation purposes. Okay, so they don't use journals to read; they just use journals to be tenured. Okay, how is CoARA working? So again, the text of the agreement. Research assessment practices should induce a research culture that recognizes collaboration, openness, and engagement with society, and that provides opportunities for multiple talents. These are the same principles we saw in scope. Evaluate what you value. So if you value a research culture that recognizes collaboration, openness, you should value collaboration and openness and not the quantity of the journal. So first reminder, the crucial importance of CoARA is about principles. To change this awful current research assessment. So it's a unique occasion to promote a research culture based on transparency because we need research integrity and we need real quality science, and a research culture based on collaboration because we need to tackle climate change and any societal change, okay? So it's a unique occasion. And if your take on CoARA, because I've listened with my ears, okay, here at the University of Turin, because we signed CoARA and then we were doing nothing for the action plan. And there was a professor raising her hand and asking, okay, but what if we don't deliver the action plan in 1 year? That's the wrong take, you know? That's the wrong perspective, because CoARA is not an obligation. You were not forced to sign CoARA. If you sign CoARA, is because you subscribe to the principles and you see CoARA as a unique opportunity to change things. Because ask your researchers, are you happy with the way in which you are evaluated nowadays? And in 90% of the case, the answer is no, we are not happy. So CoARA is a unique occasion to promote a different research culture. So that's why the importance is about the principle and not about, you know, the rules and so on. So please don't take CoARA as an administrative burden or as an obligation, because it's not. It's really a unique opportunity. And here are the principles. As I told you, we have the agreement, and within the agreement, we have the principles. Ethics, the first one is about ethics and integrity. The second one is freedom of scientific research, because as I told you before, if you think of it, if you really and earnestly think of it, nowadays you are not free to publish wherever you want, because you have to publish in the highest impact factor journal. Then the other principle is respect the autonomy of research organization and ensure independence and transparency of the data, infrastructure, and criteria necessary for research assessment. If you think of it, Web of Science, Scopus, so the main databases which we use to evaluate researchers are commercial databases. Come on, they are closed. You don't know what's in it, how the impact factor was calculated, and Beer Brems, and in the longest part and in the longest course on open science, you have at least one case of fraud in the Journal of Citation Reports. So we don't know, it's a black box, you see, and that's why as a complementary declaration to CoARA, we have the Barcelona Declaration on Open Research Information, because if we are doing open science, we also need open data on research assessment. So we need services like OpenAlex, which is an open bibliographic database, and we need open citations, again, open tools with data which are clear. They are not black boxes. Other principles of CoARA are focus research assessment criteria on quality and not quantity. Okay? Quality, as you can see here, is basically about research integrity, because quality means a sound process, clear methodologies. So if you open your research workflow, it means also that your results are, you can verify the results, you can reproduce the results, okay? And of course, you can share the data, and you can, let's say, enable a better impact and a faster impact, and be more responsive to societal needs. About quality, if you want further reading, you have this great paper by Francesca Di Donato. And by the way, Francesca is one of the two co-coordinators of the Italian chapter of CoARA. And it's a long philosophical reflection of what we mean by research quality. Going back, you see, back and forth to the principles: diversity, inclusiveness, and collaboration. And I would stress all these terms, all the more so in this time in which in the United States, these are forbidden terms, okay? But in CoARA, in the agreement, and again, I stress, it's an agreement. So if you sign, you are signing an agreement, which is not a declaration. So it's not just blah, blah. It's an agreement. You agree to recognize the diversity of research activities and practices with a diversity of outputs and reward early sharing and open collaboration. So basically, no longer just this awful publication, which is an heritage of the age, of the paper age, in which just we have journals, okay? So consider tasks like peer review. Why shouldn't you evaluated on peer review? But at the moment, if you don't adopt open peer review, nobody knows that the reviewer is you, because you are in the blind, in the double blind system. But it's important because reviews are pieces of knowledge, and reviews are asked to the expert. So if you are doing peer review, it means that you are recognized as the expert. But in this moment, nobody knows that you are a reviewer, because the names are, not in the open. So consider tasks like peer review, training, mentoring, and supervision of PhD candidates, leadership roles, communication and interaction with society. So everything that goes under public engagement, citizen science, co-creation, and even science for policy, which is really important. Knowledge valorization, industry and academy cooperation. Consider also the full range of research outputs, such as publications, of course, but also data, software, models, methods, theories, algorithms, protocols, workflow, exhibition, strategy, policy contribution, and reward research behavior underpinning open science practices, like early sharing of knowledge, open collaboration, open peer review, and so on. I stress it once again. This is an agreement. If you signed the agreement, you agree to recognize the diversity of research activities and practices, and to consider the full range of research outputs. Basically, anything you see in the open science rainbow should be considered a research output. And as I always, so this is the take of CoARA, okay? But when you see, if you are a researcher, and when you see the rainbow of open science practice, you have to know that you can do it right now. So don't wait for CoARA to be enacted, for the reform of research assessment to be enacted, because all these practices are perfectly compatible with your career advancement, even now, because now you are requested to publish in the highest impact vector journal, but they don't prevent you to deposit the data. They don't prevent you to share the preprint. They don't prevent you to share a notebook or a code or data, or they don't prevent you to pre-register your experiment. So basically, you can do open science right now. All these practices can enable a better research evaluation, because you can evaluate on every step of your research process. And on the other side, they can be boosted by different research assessment criteria, but you can do it right now, okay? So that's another important message. So CoARA is crucial to recognize open science practices and value. So CoARA, it's important because the normal reaction when they see this rainbow is, yes, but we are evaluated by impact factor. We have no time, okay? We have no time to self-archive. We have no time to share the protocol and whatever. So having different research assessment criteria would boost open science practices. But on the other hand, open science practices are enablers of CoARA, because how are you supposed to evaluate all the outputs if the outputs are not there, because there is no habit to deposit protocols, to pre-register your study, or to deposit even the FAIR data or whatever. So if you do open science, you enable CoARA. And if CoARA and the reform is accepted and is enacted, will recognize the practices, okay? So you can see that it's a two-direction path. Going back to the principle, use assessment criteria and processes that respect, it's very important, respect the variety of scientific disciplines, because what works for archaeology does not work for medicine. Acknowledge and valorize the diversity in research roles and careers, and of course, ensure gender equality, equal opportunity, and inclusiveness. And if you read the agreement, there are also annexes, and in the annexes, there is the how. Engage those being assessed in the development and design of assessment criteria and processes. That's why I was mentioning the scope framework, because you need to start, after signing CoARA, you need to start focus group. And focus group must be disciplinary, again, because what works for an archaeologist does not work for a medical doctor. And let's say intersectional, so you need PhD and you need full professors and you need all the range of people involved in research, in the research workflow, okay? Coming to the commitments, CoARA is an agreement. You sign the agreement and you commit to 4 principal commitments and 6, let's say, functional commitments. But the main commitments are: recognize the diversity of contribution to and careers in research in accordance with the needs and nature of the research itself. Base research assessment on a qualitative evaluation for which peer review is central, supported by responsible use of quantitative indicators. In red, commitment number 3, abandon inappropriate use in research assessment of journal and publication-based metrics, in particular, inappropriate use of journal impact factor and H index. This is in red because, at least for Italian listeners, our national agency signed CoARA. 832 institutions in Europe signed CoARA. So they commit. Commit is a strong word in English, isn't it? So they commit to abandon inappropriate use of journal and publication-based metrics, which does not only mean the impact factor, even the ranking of the journal, because in Italy, we created for the disciplines not covered by the journal impact factor, we created our own ranking, okay? So it's the logic of the ranking, which has to be abandoned. Point number 4, even for research organizations. All this stupid ranking in the world, and there is, you know, plenty of literature everywhere in which you can find that basically you pay and you gain some positions in the ranking because it's so easy to be cheated. So these are the commitments, okay? Raise awareness, review the research assessment criteria like we saw in scope. So probe deeply. Probe if your research assessment criteria are not having unintended consequences or whatever, okay? Again, legal basis, not only the Council conclusion we already saw, but also we add the European Commission recommendation in 2018 pledging for a change in research assessment, and another conclusion of the Council of the European Union about the ERA, the European Research Area, in which they again asked for and claimed for the need of a reform of research assessment. And in the Council conclusion, so again, in an official document, we find also the principles. We already saw them. So the quality, the diversity of roles, the diversity of outputs, the diversity of disciplines, and ensure that ethics and integrity are accorded the highest priority. So again, it's just to tell you that CoARA is based upon official documents of the European Union. Okay, so it's not, let's say, something ideal or again out of the blue. There was a path and there are official documents. If you want to know more about CoARA, on the website you will also find some what they call the key messages. Of course, it's useful also for you to know more about CoARA, and you have national chapters in many countries, as you can see here, including Italy, for instance, or Spain, Ukraine, United Kingdom. You have CoARA working groups because, as we said, it's based on mutual learning. So we have disciplinary working group. For instance, we have a working group on open infrastructure for responsible research assessment, and they provided the first outputs. Then we have another working group, for instance, on multilingualism, any kind of really working group, and you can propose one. And if you want to start in your institution now a path towards reforming research assessment, if you apply by April 25, there are also cascading grants. As you can see here, they are out with the second call. So the first one already finished last year. And it's a grant basically to facilitate the transformation. And you have on the website other tools, meaning a guideline to prepare your action plan, because of course the action plan must be, let's say, easy and based on your own context. Okay, so you have some guiding questions and also a guidance on the administrative process to have the action plan approved. You have a blog with the news, and I've put this article, which is almost 1 year ago, because there was this blog post published in the LCE blog, the role of scientometrics in the pursuit of responsible research assessment. Because if you remember the commitment, they taught about responsible use of quantitative indicators. First effects. CWTS in Leiden, one of the organizations publishing a ranking, last year, for the first year, they published an open edition based on OpenAlex and open citation. So this is one first effect. Then we have some other effects, like the University of Utrecht and the University of Zurich, as far as I know, they withdrew from global rankings, and also the University of Ghent, for instance. And in France, La Sorbonne and the CNRS, they have unsubscribed from Scopus and from Web of Science, because they no longer use commercial websites for research assessment. And going in the same direction of CoARA, we have two more Horizon-funded projects. One is Opus, and here you see the infographic of all the aspects you should consider in the evaluation of researchers. So publications are just one of the labels in the first column, research. But then you have education, you have leadership, and you have research valorization. And you have GRASP-OS, which is open research assessment data space. You would find pilot studies and community of practice as the same concept of CoARA. It's community-based. It should be asked researchers how they want to be evaluated. So my final message is, don't miss the chance. CoARA is really a unique opportunity to recognize a different research culture. And you find the same message in the vision, not in the mission. At the beginning, we saw the mission, but the vision of CoARA is to recognize the diverse outputs, practices, and activities that maximize the quality and the impact of research through an emphasis on qualitative judgment in assessment, for which peer review is essential. So thank you for your attention. I hope we are in time and we are not too late, because when I talk about these issues, I always tend to, go over the time, but I think that's not the case.
We are perfectly on time.
Okay, so
Thank you very much.
I stop sharing.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Dr. Giglia. It was very interesting, and thanks a lot for beautifully bringing together all the information and also the resources. So yeah. I will share also the link of Zenodo, but we will also share in our website the registration of the webinar and also the slides from Zenodo.